the state. This is great. Large cities, small cities, regional councils. Do appreciate all of you jumping on and learning about this grant and presentation. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn the podium over to Sean Kessel, who will be able to go ahead and give us greetings and kind of overview this project. Sean, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Sean Kessel. I'm the Interim Commerce Commissioner for the state of North Dakota. I'm coming to you today from the city of Grand Forks and the Grand Forks Regional Economic Development Association. They've graciously allowed us to use their conference room today as we travel about Eastern North Dakota, talking to communities and receiving feedback on a variety of commerce programs. It's our intent today to provide you with information on a new grant that's available to North Dakota cities, counties, and tribal entities, along with the application process and the notification process. We encourage you to ask questions, and to do so, enter them into the chat function. We'd like to keep everybody on mute until the end of the presentation, where we'll formally open it up for questions. We'll try to answer everyone's questions today within the time frame allowed. We're going to be very respectful of your time. And if we don't get to your questions today, we will update the FAQ portion on our question and responses. The link to that has been posted in the chat so that you can access that at your leisure. Melinda has posted that web link, so hopefully you can grab that again whenever you need to. Well, back in May of this year, the U.S. Economic Development Association or Administration, or EDA, awarded North Dakota $1 million as part of the EDA's statewide planning program for COVID recovery. The goal of the North Dakota's EDA Public Space Initiative and Placemaking Planning Grant is to help communities across the state invest in planning and design necessary to enhance the statewide attraction of businesses and the promotion of economic activity. In addition, this grant will help us with the retention and attraction of talented workers, with the result of strengthening the economic resiliency of communities across North Dakota as we continue to recover from the economic impacts of COVID-19. Using this funding, the Main Street Initiative is collaborating with other state agencies to build out partnerships for capacity building and reaching out to more agencies, planning councils, stakeholders, and communities than we ever have before. We're excited to hear the ideas and opportunities presented by communities, counties, and tribal entities across the state for placemaking as a tool for economic growth. You will hear today from Angie Martinez, the Regional Director for the EDA, on how this grant works in partnership with our regional council, our regional goals to sustain and grow our economies. You'll also hear from Kim Conoco, the Executive Director for the North Dakota Council on the Arts, who will share some of the best practices and ideas for placemaking across the nation. And finally, we are excited to hear your thoughts and answer your questions with regards to this grant. Commerce and the Main Street Initiative team continues to work with our partners, both public and private, to meet the objectives of the MSI 4 pillars. And just as a reminder, those pillars are smart, efficient infrastructure, 21st century workforce, healthy, vibrant communities, and economic diversification. This grant can play a role in moving our state and your community forward and create a future of your choosing and your design. I'd like to introduce you to some of the team that will be working with you on this grant. If you joined early, you've heard Maria Efforts. She's the Director of Community Services Division within Commerce. Melinda Padilla Lynch was hired specifically to help you on this EDA grant. And Tracy Miller and Emma Cook round out the MSI team. They're available to help you navigate this grant, along with supporting each community as they move past planning and into implementation. Before we hear from Maria, I want to remind everybody one more time that you can find this grant at www.nd.gov/living-nd/main-street-nd. Again, that will be in the chat for you to have easier access. We'll continue to update the frequently asked questions and provide as much detail as possible on this site. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria, and she can start with our for other introductions and the slides. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.
Thanks, Sean, for joining, and thank you all for joining us on this call. It is a great pleasure to be able to receive this ability from the governor's office to distribute these EDA funds and be able to increase and enhance what we already have for places in North Dakota that not only help resiliency but workforce and economic growth. As up on the screen, you'll notice the grant is an investment in planning and design. That is what this grant is for through EDA. It does provide us as the Main Street entity to be able to partner also with a lot of agencies and with you. We are working very closely with our other state partners to be able to help you take a look at how you do placemaking, but then also how do you go to the next steps. And that's where it's really critical that we talk about you having partners in your own communities and in your own regions. There will be extra opportunity and incentives if you're able to pull in those private partners, because as we all know, a place is more than just a spot on the map. And we want to make sure that your placemaking grant goes to good use and is able to reach those entities and agencies across the state. Just a quick reminder on the deadlines, and we'll talk about these again, but the EDA grant actually opens on July 15th. We're a day ahead, or a couple days ahead, to kind of give you a chance to ask the questions before it opens, but we do have plenty of time in there for once, and all of the information is up on the website. We have a lot of time for you to be able to build those cohorts, be able to build the partnerships, take a look at something that isn't outside of what you would obviously think of as placemaking. And we're going to hear some great examples from Kim, along with Melinda, on some ideas, spur your ideas. Eligible entities are only city, county, and tribal entities. So if you as an individual or as an organization or as a private business have an idea, we encourage you, go start talking to your partners out there, talk to your cities, talk to your counties. Is there some way that you can create partnerships that involve public and private spaces? How do you make that work? There is up to $100,000 in available, and this does not, which is very unique in federal grants and state grants, require a local match. Now that's up to $100,000. If your project is less than $100,000, that you're not going to be penalized for that at any point in time, and we don't require that local match. So here's a chance to get together and take advantage of this opportunity. Again, private and public partnerships are strongly recommended, not only for this, but for your long-term success. How do you make it go past the planning stages? And we'll be taking a look at that too. And we really encourage you to look past what you do once you have that plan. We all have plans that sit on the shelves. We don't want any of these to be those plans. We want them to be successful, not only for the success of this grant, but the success of your community. And the last is not eligible for planning projects. And of course, there's those non-eligible ones. Comprehensive planning is eligible, but it must include placemaking as a component of that plan. Infrastructure planning is not eligible. Implementations of those plans, we can get you right up to that point where you can get to final implementation and final plans, but we cannot approve those final plans. And final architectural designs are also not eligible for reimbursement on this. So that gives a little bit of thinking on your part. How do you get to that next step of implementation? But we can get you right up to that point with implementation. And so we're really excited to see what you have on that. At this point in time, I'm really excited to introduce Angie Martinez, who's with the Economic Development Administration. This is an EDA grant that was given to the state to be able to deliver planning purposes. We are really excited that they approved our plan because we're stretching our borders just a little bit by placemaking, but they've been a great partner, and I would like to turn it over to Angie to talk a little bit about EDA and our partnership.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Maria and Sean. It's really great to be with you guys this morning and have an opportunity to talk about EDA and talk about this grant in particular. Again, my name is Angie Martinez. I'm the Regional Director of the EDA Denver Regional Office. We cover 10 states, as you can see on this map, pretty big area of the country that's covered by EDA. I also want to take a minute before I get started in my remarks to introduce my colleagues who are on the call. Danielle Blakely. Danielle is the lead for this grant. She's working with Maria and Sean and the team as this plan has been developed, and she'll work hand in hand with the team moving forward. And Allie DeMesserman, who just popped up on the screen. Allie is our economic development representative for the state of North Dakota. She comes to EDA with a lot of experience as running one of our economic development districts and is really a great resource for all of you. Allie and Danielle will stay on the call. Unfortunately, Maria, I'm going to have to jump off a little bit early, but as questions come in, these are your points of contact who will be able to answer all your questions about EDA and about this grant and any other opportunities that you might want to explore. So I wanted to take a couple minutes just to talk about kind of how we got here. And I will share that shortly after the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I saw a headline that said, "Why bounce back from COVID-19 when we can bounce forward?" And that headline really struck me. It's what our agency has helped communities and regions do for our more than 50-year history. And I really think that that's what this planning grant is looking to do as well. Often EDA will work with the community after a natural disaster to help them recover, or after a plant shuts down and jobs are lost. And certainly now with the global pandemic, we were able to come in and support this state. I want to note that, there's really no top-down formula on how to do economic recovery. You won't see at EDA us saying this is how you need to recover and this is how you need to do economic development, because we really believe that it's a bottom-up effort and it's based on regional and local plans and strategies. And that's what I really think that we're doing with this grant as well. You guys can go to the next slide, please. I'm really not going to go through these slides in a lot of depth because you've got Allie on the phone. We can share her contact information, but I will say we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and we support planning and technical assistance. As you can see with this grant, we do capacity building and infrastructure, innovation and entrepreneurship, and really whatever the local needs are, EDA can do it. I will say if your project creates jobs or attracts private investment, then we want to talk to you. And again, we'll share Allie's contact information as well. Through the American Rescue Plan Act, Congress gave us a really unique opportunity to partner with states for these statewide planning activities. And I'm very excited about the work that the state of North Dakota is doing on placemaking. To me, it's a very critical and important component of economic development, because at the end of the day, you have to have a place that people want to live, a place that they want to build their families and their lives. And that is really what this opportunity comes down to. And I just wanted to share a quick story before I wrap up to really, hone in on what this is all about. A couple years ago, a colleague of mine and I went to a community that we made a really large investment after they had experienced a really catastrophic natural disaster. And we were doing a ribbon cutting, and it was a time to celebrate. And we flew in and rented a car and drove into town and just drove around the town. And one of the things that I commented was, wow, like this small community has a lot of parks. It just really struck me, a lot of really nice parks. So we met with the chamber director later in the day, and I commented, like, this is just a really dynamic community. I really have noticed you have a lot of really great parks. And he said it was interesting that I said that because they had an opportunity to, they were a finalist for a major employer The employer sent some of their executives into the town to see if they would like to live there and bring their families there. And they spent some time there, and they did not select this community. They went with another community. And they asked, why didn't you select our community? And they said, well, you don't really have any parks, and our executives couldn't see themselves living there and bringing their families and their workers there. And they were really disappointed to hear that, because they had parks, but they just weren't, they didn't have good signage and good promotion of the parks. And so what I saw when I came into town was a little bit investment that they made in showing off their parks. And obviously it paid off, since it was one of the things that I noticed right off the bat. So I just wanted to share that, because I think what you guys are going to be doing across the state of North Dakota to really plan to enhance the places that you all love and live in, to attract more jobs and more investment, is just going to be really important and pay dividends for your state and your community. So again, we're so excited to be your partner. You guys can go ahead and flip through these slides and go and get to the rest of the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have at the end. But thanks so much for having us, and we can't wait to see what you do with this grant.
Thank you so much. As you go through these slides, you'll notice that EDA has made a significant investment in North Dakota. A lot of things that they are working with. Again, we will make sure this whole slide deck is up on our website. The website has been placed up there a couple times by our team on the chat feature, and we are so very happy to be able to have EDA as one of our partners as we go through this. To let you know, we're in the works to have EDA also as part of the Main Street Summit, which is going to be October 24th through the 26th in Bismarck, North Dakota. And so again, if you get to that point by October and you say, okay, how do we do some of this? Is EDA a partner? We're really excited to hopefully have them be part of our summit and be part of answering some of those questions for you at that point in time. So what is placemaking? And we have a couple of people on the line here that have done it quite well, and one of them is Kim Conoco. And so I'm very excited to introduce and turn this meeting over to Kim so she can share with us a little bit about what she sees as placemaking across not only our state, but across the nation. So Kim, please go ahead. Oh, Kim, you're on mute. Yeah, so isn't that the common saying across the board now?
You're on mute. Where's the mute button? Okay. Thanks, everyone, and I'm thrilled to see so many familiar names in the attendees list. What I'm going to do is Melinda is going to run some slides, and then basically I'm just going to talk very briefly over the images that we're showing you, and talk a little bit about placemaking. So first of all, for North Dakota Council on the Arts, and I think across the country, it's a philosophy. It's not necessarily a roadmap, and that's because the roadmap is going to come directly from your community and the people involved. So I think it's important that you just keep in mind that there are a lot of ways that this can get done. The most important thing to think about is placemaking and public art. What's the difference? So public art is conceived for maybe a particular place or a community, and its intention is to be accessible. It's art that's out in public spaces, and it can be a variety of forms or sizes and scales: murals, fountains, sculptures, memorials. And it can be temporary or permanent. And public art can stimulate and invite discussion rather than just passively looking at something or observing it. Placemaking, and these are the slides that you're going to see now, and they're taken from a variety of communities across the country. So it's about encouraging citizens to improve the environment that they live in, especially those that are directly in your neighborhoods. The idea is that it's going to instill meaning. There will be a greater sense of personal identity and an understanding of where you live, where you work, and particularly where you visit. So it's about creating memorable experiences. It grows out of a community that's coming together to create a story about who they are or addressing maybe a societal issue. It creates a focal point, and it encourages people to participate. It encourages a sense of meaning and identity and it also creates in participation. And most importantly, this needs to happen across the diversity of people in your community, young, elder, middle-aged, different income scales. You want it to be as an inclusive process as possible. So from an arts point of view, creative placemaking is generally understood as the use of arts and culture by all partners to strategically shape the physical and social character of a place. There is a little bit of a difference. Sometimes you'll hear the word place keeping, and that is really trying to take into account the historical people, the cultures that came before. So the terms are a little interchangeable. And again, a lot of it has to do with the community that you're in and the people that you're working with. Placemaking will capitalize on community assets that are already there. It can be inspiring, and it can also lead toward a great potential. And the intention is really about health, happiness, and well-being. So it's a lovely place and a lovely philosophy to keep in our minds in the crazy world that we live in. You can convert a place in a relatively short period of time to one that might be a really strong sense of place, and it might serve as a magnet for people and new development. It can humanize an environment, and it provides definitely an intersection between past and present and future. It really can help communities thrive. So again, you want to think about extending the partnerships because that will create many more resources. And you want to look at all the diverse people that live in your community. I would be lying if I said it's a short process. It's not. It requires very gentle management, but it really leads to a fruitful engagement within your community, and then to visitors, and then potentially to possible workforce. The idea is that you're creating an environment that people both want to live in, visit, and work in. Just in closing, North Dakota Council on the Arts is involved in an 8-region rural placemaking program, and it's called Arts Across the Prairie. It's the first statewide program in the country, and we're going to be creating 8 large-scale installations that will be built out in rural North Dakota. And it's all based on the cultural heritage of each region of the state. So it's taken a long time for stakeholders to come together around ideas and visions. And we're thrilled that the first installation will be taking place up in Region 1, the nethermost part of our state, near Writing Rock State Historical Site. Please contact me if you have any questions, or put your questions into the chat, and we're happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kim. And as I said, we have some great state partners that are part of the whole Main Street process. And I got to say that the North Dakota Council on the Arts ranks right up there as one of our best advocates and allies as we go through and work to support the Main Street Initiative and the pillars, and ties directly into this EDA grant. And so we look forward to helping the communities and the regions and the tribal entities work directly with Kim and with others. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Melinda, as she was introduced earlier, is our direct resource and helping us manage this grant. Melinda Padilla Lynch has been hired to be the director of this grant process and has learned more about placemaking than anyone in the last couple months, I believe, and especially about this grant and the application. So, Melinda, if you would take over and give us some more insight.
Sure. It's my honor again to be with you guys today. This grant does incorporate 3 key factors. We're going to talk about COVID-19 resiliency, workforce, and economic development. And with that next, we're going to go to the next slide and talk about community partnership, that collaboration. We do know that we do need a partnership with all people of our community. And so the 2 key questions, and I love that Maria put this in my thought process. And so I want to put this in your thought process. What does your community need and what will it support? And that is the main thing we want to talk about with these collaborations. It is a multifaceted approach to placemaking because we do need the private and the public entities to come into a partnership to apply for this grant. We also want to talk about place-based. Place-based placemaking is not just, we want to talk about placemaking is just not just green space. Place-based economic development is the practice of using communities' public amenities to make economic progress. With that, maybe there's an old gas station, an old school, an old hospital that could be utilized in a placemaking space. How could you utilize that, and how could that incorporate into your community? The other thing we are really excited about is winter placemaking. As we all know, winter placemaking is a new concept, but also at the same time, it's not a new concept. I think as North Dakotans, we can embrace our lovely longest season that we have and really lean in and figure out ways that we can use placemaking in our winter season and do more attraction to have people come visit and also get out more during the winter seasons. Also with our next slide, you're going to see we're going to talk about collaborating with all ages. We want placemaking position to be this project to incorporate someone that is 8 to 80. There is a great company that we are working with that is out of Toronto that we have partnerships, and they are called 880 Cities. And they look at that as a basic, how can an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old enjoy the space? And so we want to look at that as your placemaking, but also in the planning process. Will you use youth in your planning process? Will you include them in some of your decision making? We want them to really be involved with your guys' grant process because this is their community and they will be the next ones taking over. And so they do have a different perspective on how they look at placemaking and also the spaces that you guys have been utilizing and maybe not been utilizing as different spaces that could be attracting visitors, giving people better quality of life in your communities. And then also with that, I think our next slide goes more into the details. This is up to $100,000 per community. You do not have to use up to $100,000. It can be a little project or a big project. This does not have to have a match. So that is a really great incentive for you guys. We do open up on Friday and we will close September 1st. And the awards will be announced October 15th. And the completion and the project timeline and the funds have to be expended by October 1st of 2023. So that gives you about a year for the whole process. And then in the next slide, we'll go over a little bit more details. Again, this is just a repeat, but just to reiterate, eligible entities are city and county tribal entities. But again, we are encouraging you for public and private partnerships on that space. The grant will be able to cover planning, but the eligible planning projects beyond that are the comprehensive planning does not include placemaking, cannot be covered, infrastructure planning, implementation of plans, and final architectural designs. And Maria is going to talk a little bit more about partnerships at the end and just go in a little bit more detail and maybe give you guys some more examples of how you guys can partner with those private entities and take it to the next level. So here's just, again, those 3 key components. Workforce development, retention and attraction of talented workers to your area, COVID-19 resiliency, recovery of the economic impacts of COVID-19. Also think about if we were to have another COVID outbreak, how would that space be workable again? How can it be usable of space on the outside? Economic growth potential, promotion of economic activity. How will you encourage people to come into your community? How will you get them to stay the night? How will you go and have them visit other entities and other businesses in your community? And attracting community members, and not only community members, but visitors to your placemaking space. How will you advertise that? How will they know that space is there? And then again, I know we've said this over and over, but using those other partnering businesses. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I am your lead on this, but I do want to end with this. I love this. The Council of Arts actually did this, and placemaking is community-oriented, transformative, economical, beneficial, and historically significant. It is not exclusive, one size fits all, one specific art form, and temporary. And so I really feel like those were just a really simple and easy way for us to look at what placemaking is, because placemaking can be such a broad term, but we don't want to limit you on what you can do in your community. It's more about what your community can support. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free. I did put my information on the website, and I can put it again, and I'm your direct contact. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and it is my honor to serve you with this grant. Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. And I'm going to leave it on this slide a little bit to kind of reiterate a couple of the points, and then we'll be sure to take questions and answers. Again, if you have some questions and you can type it into the chat feature, that would be great. And we'll take those at the end here. And if you don't have the accessibility to be able to get to the chat feature, you feel free to come off of mute and go ahead and ask us those questions. I want to leave it on this because going back to what Melinda said is some of those examples. Most of us, no matter the size of your community right now, have an empty building. What does that empty building do for you right now? Probably very little. But what can it do for you in the future in terms of a place? How does it make you stand out as a place? Is it a community facility? Is it part of Next Spots? Is there an empty lot next to it that you could put a business in that building, and that empty lot could be a great open space area? Is that open space area something that can become creative space? Can it become usable space? Is it community oriented? And I go back to that and again, because we can't do these just with one person's ideas. You have to take a look at how the community will buy in, how it will buy it, and then how it will support it afterwards. So take some time in your plan when you submit it to us in your application. How are you going to involve your community? How are you going to involve the generations? How are you going to look at today's diversity? And how are you going to look at what the diversity is going to be in North Dakota in the future? And how do you the reference that Angie gave was great. When somebody drives in your community, what do they see first? And how is that reflective of what you can do? How can you transform something in your community to become an economic benefit, to become something that you're all proud of? And how can it be something that stays there? Isn't something that's just a short term, that stays there for future generations to really be proud of also? There's so many things that my father used to talk about, still does talk about, by the way, that reference the community coming together in his time, building things that lasted a generation and multi-generations. They built a clinic, they built a park, they built a main street, and then they supported it by going back and being there. Let's make sure that this grant falls into that line item where we can brag about it to our grandkids in the future. So with that, I think we'll take some questions and answers. We've had several pop up on the screen, and I really do appreciate that. And so let me take a few seconds here to be able to get to it. And with several examples, what is not allowed, would you please share some examples of what is allowed? It's going to be really tough for me to do that because everybody has their own communities. And that's why we tried not to say you only can do this, this, and this. I'm going to say as an example, I'm going to use my own community, what I would dream of doing if I was going to be in that community. We have a very large open lot on Main Street that I think somebody has referenced it as a gap in our smile on Main Street. If I was to do that, I would start and make the application with an idea in mind. The idea probably would be some kind of multi-use park. And when I say multi-use park, I think of when people drive down my main street and they see that park, what would make them want to be there and stay there? Also, is there an economic spin to it? Can I tie it into the buildings that surround it? What would benefit the boutique next door? What would benefit the restaurant across the street? What would benefit the bank across the road if I did something with that empty lot? I don't want to, we're not going to be able to answer that question for you. I'm going to be straight up honest on that one. You need to take a look. You need to talk to your neighbors. You need to find out what is it that people want to do and how they want to do it. And you might be able to find something that rings in there for not only you, but your community. What are the administrative expectations of this grant and reporting requirements or performance measures? Good question, Ben. Thank you. The administrative expectations are the fact that we will be a reimbursable grant. There is no funding for administrative purposes. There is no extra funding. This grant has to go to solely pay for that plan. You cannot take off the top funds to be able to pay for any administrative costs. So that cost is going to be up to you as a community or a volunteer to be able to pay for that administrative parts. Now we can pay for the people that are doing that plan, but we cannot subgrant out. So if you have a one planner that you hire to do that, that funding can go towards that planning agency. It can also go to any kind of public meetings that you need to use, public spaces that you need, charrettes that you're going to do, those type of activities. It can go to the final planning, but it cannot go to implementation. So those are the administrative expectations. Again, it is a report out, or it is a reimbursable grant. And so you have to be able to consider that when you're making the application and the costs that'll come with that reimbursement. Performance measures, again, this grant is very open. I love working with EDA. If you guys are still on, I really do love working with you guys because they allow us to be able to look local. So what are the performance measures? Tell us that. Tell us what you are going to base your success on. We also are asking, how are you going to pay for that implementation in there? And that will weigh into the questions, weigh into the final application process, along with maintenance. Don't forget, if you're going to do something, how are you going to keep it up? How are you going to first build it? And then how are you going to keep it up? When I was writing grants, I would always ask those questions before we went on because I didn't want to build something and then see it be a wreck 5 years later. So those are all questions that are going to be up to you to respond to us. Does maintaining a walking trail fall under placemaking or infrastructure? No, not maintaining. Sorry. We will not pay for any implementation or maintenance, but I would challenge you to say, that walking trail is going around your community, out to your parks. What is it doing? So what can you do around that place that becomes an economic and resiliency that it doesn't take much to maintain it in future years because people are so excited to have that walking trail there that they will support that maintenance. So the trail itself, no. What is happening around the trail? What can you do with that trail to be able to do that? Next question from Bill says the community of Van Hook has gathered funds to build large pavilion, not incorporated city. Should we partner? Yes. We will not accept unincorporated cities. They have to be incorporated cities or counties or tribal entities. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Kim. It's not just the thing that ties the community, but what is it? How does it affect the community? Very true. Very true. Tanya, we're looking at examples of the spend. Can it be used for planning fees, professional services? Will those say yes? Do architectural, conceptual, or schematic designs? The conceptual, yes. Final, no. So again, I can get you right up to that point, but I cannot approve anything that says we're going to have a final plan approved there. Get your pretty pictures, get something, because you got to have a picture to get your public to buy in. But I can't do that final proposal for you. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that, Daniel. Yeah, we EDA. I like having friends in the right places. Put it that way. Could be walking trail. Could it be used to make a walking track? Again, what are you doing with that walking track? It's not. We can't do implementation, so I can't build you a walking track. But what are you doing with that walking track? How does it create a place? Going back to Kim's, it's not about one thing. It's about community vitality. What does that facility do that makes your community a place that people want to live, work, and play in, that they drive through, or your community starts bragging about? What is it about that track? Because it's not just the track. It's about everything else that happens around that track. Gwinner is planning a new aquatic center. Would it qualify for this grant? Again, I'm going to go back. I can't build you the aquatic center. Does the aquatic center have components that make it a place? If you submitted, I'll be honest, if you submitted just, hey, we're going to submit this aquatic center and we need somebody to draw the plans up for the aquatic center, it will not fall at the top. But if you tell me you're going to work on an aquatic center and it's going to be part of a community place, that you're going to involve the businesses in that aquatic center somehow, you're going to create festivals, you're going to create a place that people want to come to that aquatic center. I'm going to go back to, people have asked us, do we do splash pads? That's been a common question across the state. Can we do a splash pad? Can we do a splash pad? Then the answer will be no. We cannot fund just a splash pad. But what does that splash pad do for your economics, for your resiliency, and for your workforce? What else is going on in your community that ties to that splash pad? Because just a splash pad, I mean, I can drive up to Minot, go to the splash pad, and come home and not spend a dime. That splash pad is not hitting those 3 targets. But what else is happening in that area that would create somebody to call that a place that they want to live, work, and play in? Let's see. The question is, can funds be engage the community business or discover through? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Rachel, that is. Can the funds be used to engage the community, businesses, organizations to discover needs through conversations? Absolutely. That would be, how do you discover what the community wants? Sometimes it's nice to have a vision in your mind as you approach it, but sometimes our visions are changed because we start hearing the whole community wants something just a little bit different than what one person wants. You must include community conversations in here. Absolutely, you must create it. Yep, the question, and thanks, Kim, for answering that. So this grant is only for creating plans for placemaking. Yes, not for the placemaking. Thank you for that question, Simone. That is exactly what that is for. So I think I hit all the questions. Melinda, did I miss anything?
There was, what about replacing a roof on a historical public library? That was one.
Replacing it? No. What are you going to do with a library? What's that part of that place? But if you're looking for funds to fix, build, or enhance something directly, this is not your grant. This grant is for planning around that place, not building that place. Now, we will be more than happy to help you take a look at how we can meet those needs. We're working with our state partners, our federal partners. As you heard earlier from the EDA, there's opportunity there once you have a plan, if it creates jobs. Don't limit yourself right now on that. Take a chance and look at what your community wants to do and how you want to do it. We've got a couple minutes left, but I'd be happy to come. If anybody has a question and they want to come off mute, please feel free to jump on.
Maria,
Yeah.
there's another question in there. Could this grant be used for a master plan for public art, specifically to hire a consultant via the RFP process?
Yes, you can hire a consultant for that process. And you do not need to have your consultant in mind before you apply. You probably want to make sure that you know what the cost is going to be. So you want to get into that part of it. If you have a consultant in mind already and you've gone through the RFP process, that's fine. But we want to make sure you understand you do not need to have that name on your application, but you do need to know how much it will cost. Because we will not, it's a reimbursable cost. And if you go over, that will be your expectations. If you're under, you will only be reimbursed for the cost that you have incurred at that point in time. So yes, that can be part of it. Excited to see some of those applications, but reminded that we need to know what the cost will be. Anybody else out there? Did I miss any questions? Does anybody else want to come off of mute? You've got a whole team here at Commerce that will be able to answer some of those.
And then a question about feasibility studies.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm blanking out here and not keeping up, am I? Feasibility studies, yes. Feasibility studies are eligible to be able to do that on placemaking and community involvement. Yes. Anything else that I missed? Just scrolling through here. Anybody want to come off of mute in the last 1 minute we have?
There was one last comment in there too of, can the funds be used to engage the community, businesses, organizations to discover needs through conversation?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Please consider engaging. You have to. You have to know what your community wants. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to proceed on a project. And so we want to see those. How are you going to engage community and how are you going to engage private entities? Don't forget about those private-public partnerships. With that, respecting everybody's time, it's 11 o'clock. We will go through and we will have these frequently asked questions added to our website. There you see the website that's up for placemaking. If you need to talk to somebody, Melinda is fabulous and she has may not have all the answers for you, but we'll work really hard to find those answers for you. There's her contact, her direct number, and her email. Again, the application, the guidelines and the frequently asked questions are on this website. The application opens on Friday. It closes September 1st, so you have a lot of time to start working with your community, with your private partners, with those entities that may surprise you with some of those ideas on what they consider a place. Don't forget multi-generational, and don't forget to include cultural aspects. So thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. I hope you have a blessed rest of the day, and we are very much looking forward to seeing these applications.